BSI presents Knowledge Series.
Five, four, three, two, one.
A very pleasant morning on behalf of the Educational Promotion Society of India to this knowledge series. A very pleasant morning again to all those who have logged in.
It's gone full.
Educational Promotion Society, since its inception, has strived to provide a platform to represent the common causes that are relevant in the Indian higher education ecosystem. And as part of it, their effort, they have now been well recognized as a meaningful representation of the higher education sector, more so the private educational institutions. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us a guest, Dr. Subhash Chandra Parija. And I would be picking the brains of Dr. Parija on behalf of EPSI. I'm Dr. Kumar. After a short stint with the Indian Council of Medical Research, I spent 34 years with a private medical college in Bangalore, the Ramaya Medical College, in various academic and administrative positions. I am now the Chancellor of a private health university in Karnataka, that is the Devarajas Academy of Higher Education Research. Our distinguished guest today, Dr. Subhash Chandra Parija, is the Vice Chancellor of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth. He is an eminent academician of over 3.5 decades experience, a microbiologist, and it is destiny that a pathologist in me has to be participating with Dr. Parija. He is an avid researcher and a keen advocate of the medical education program in this country. A very able administrator. Just a few weeks ago, I heard the Honorable Governor General of Puducherry complimenting Dr. Parija, saying that Puducherry is missing you. That will summarize his contribution in the field of healthcare delivery and as an able administrator to the community. He has a PhD, a doctorate in science, and holds a fellowship with the Royal College of Pathology. He was a former director of the JIPMER Puducherry. He has authored more than 15 books and over 300 research papers in national, international journals. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will appreciate that this is not possible without a total commitment, dedicated involvement in academics. He has been a WHO expert and has received a WHO fellowship. Neighboring SAARC countries have also had the benefit of Dr. Subhash's expertise. The Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Oman have tapped his resource to strengthen their efforts at microbiology and research. He is a recipient of the B.C. Roy Award in 2003 and has been a distinguished alumni awardee in 2012 from the BHU. Pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Subhash. Good morning to you. We are now to get the best out of you with regards to the National Education Policy 2020. Educationalists in India have always been accused over decades of peddling educational system left behind by the British. We have not innovated in the past so many decades. But when it comes to health education, the system that has existed has served well in the sense that the products coming out of it, Indian doctors, have done extremely well in our own country and in every foreign soil which they have decided to make it their home. So with this background, Dr. Subhash, was there a need for this national education policy? What are some of the challenges faced by you and your institutions with the current medical education system?
Thank you, Professor Kumar. At the outset, I must thank Educational Promotion Society of India of thinking me to participate in this discussion on National Education Policy 2020. I am really and I'm indeed honored to be interviewed by Professor Kumar, a person of eminent stature. I hope I learn a lot from him during discussion. Thank you so much,
We'll,
sir. Thank you. Thank you. Now, for example, now when this National Education Policy 2020 was announced, we must understand first, was there a need for this policy? Because many of my colleagues, our faculties, wherever we meet, we all discuss this issue. What are the need for this policy? If we want to discuss on that, we must have a little background of this, our education policy in India. The last education policy in India was made in 1986 and it was revised in 1992. This policy was largely focused on access and equity in education, which later paved the way to emphasize the right to education for all. That was most essential during that time. Now, this new education policy 2020 has been revised after a long gap of 34 years. It's a really long gap. 34 years this policy has been announced. When the new education policy probably aims really make a sincere effort at quality education, which will make India a global knowledge superpower. The education system in India has been mostly criticized and frequently criticized in last many decades to harbor a variety of problems which this new education policy probably aims to address those issues. Most important of these issues is of jobs, employability of the graduates, employability of the postgraduates. Institutions have been running courses which don't really have application and employability. Currently, graduates don't seem to be getting employed, and majority of times end up doing job not related to their core graduation. The education system is highly exam oriented and not skill oriented. Students are made to value rote memory rather than skills. Graduation is usually seen only as a platform for postgraduates. Even you take in our health sciences courses, even in MBBS, the students tend to concentrate most of their time on how to crack entrance examination to get to the postgraduate program. The education system, in essence, is very exam-centric. Rather, it does not encourage students to learn and to be more skill-centric. Core sciences are valued much more compared to soft skills like communication in health sciences, empathy, ethics. They are never taught as a part of in our health sciences courses currently. Hence, this national education policy, I hope, will give an opportunity to encourage the students to value life skills like communications, ethics while dealing with the colleagues, ethics of dealing with the patients, their relatives, and of course, critical thinking right from schooling. The concept of critical thinking from skilling even till postgraduate days, unfortunately, is completely lacking. So this is in essence, I feel with this background, we cannot march rapidly in this 21st century. We have to move rapidly. We have to move very quickly. I think that is the reason there's a need for the change of policy. And I think this National Education Policy 2020 has come, even after a long gap of many years, in the right time.
Thank you, Dr. Subhash. I can't disagree with you on the points that you have mentioned, especially the lack of skill-oriented training. We would benefit the audience much better by restricting and focusing on health education, because that is your domain expert and mine. And you have served in the government sector, the premier JIPMER, for over 3 decades, and I have been for 4 decades completely in the private sector. This new reorganization that is envisaged in the National Education Policy and in the new National Medical Council, do you see any real change? I am stressing on the word real change.
Yeah, you are right that if they can bring some real change, that's what. At least what I feel, this new education policy at least make an attempt to re-envision the process of regulation system for higher education system in India. That is one of the strong plus point. Because we have felt the regulatory system in India has been heavy-handed. There are multiple regulatory bodies. For example, in health sciences, the then MCI, now NMC, of course, coming, Dental Council, Nursing Council, so many regulatory bodies with different accreditation criteria. And we must agree, all these definitely complicate the process. The new policy, National Education Policy 2020, has taken a bold step to set up one single Higher Education Commission of India, HECI, which will have 4 distinct verticals under it. National Higher Education Regulatory Council as the single regulator for all higher education in India, of course, excluding medical education and law. National Accreditation Council, NAC, to provide accreditation for regular institutions. Higher Education Grant Council, this will carry out funding and financing of Higher Education and General Education Council to frame the graduate attributes. In this context, the new National Medical Commission also will have 4 autonomous boards to regulate medical education systems. The undergraduate board, the postgraduate board, medical assessment and rating board, and ethics and medical regulation board definitely together regulate the medical education scenario system in India. In the old regulations, each regulatory agency or accreditation body is different, was different with their norms, process, and documentation methods. Sometimes I also, now after taking up this vice chancellor of this university and earlier directed, sometimes we have to present the same data needs to be prepared in different formats for each of them. That leads to consumption of more manpower and other resources. Sometimes the innovations required by accredited bodies are not permitted because of strict guidelines of the regulatory bodies that contradict each other. As proposed in this new education policy, if there is going to be one common accreditation agency, that appears will solve many issues. Because in this policy, the new regulatory system appears to propose a system that is easier and more effective in implementations. Definitely, the vision of the government of India seems to be holy, but it remains to be seen if this can make a lasting impact in this new era of education. Hence, what I visualize that 2 components, that is implementation and sustainability, will be the main 2 issues for successful implementation of this national education policy.
Thank you, Subhash. You have almost listed out the potential or anticipated benefits from this new policy and also from the NMC. The word light but tight regulation, which will be the slogan for the National Medical Council. What is your take on this? Light but tight regulation.
Yeah, now more recently, official announcement has been proclaimed in replacing MCI with National Medical Commission. As all of us know, medical education is a very important component of health. MCI has long been the primary regulator of health education in India. This 63-year-old MCI was mainly controlled in its governing body by the medical fraternity, and internal elections were held for its leadership positions. The idea of National Medical Commission to replace the MCI, I hope, is to simplify the process and to ensure more transparencies.
Yes.
Yes.
That is a positive way to look forward to.
Yes.
Do you mean to see a possibility of greater autonomy for medical universities and medical institutions by this policy? Because I have always believed and observed
Yes.
the MCA regulations were making the institutions run like a Tonga horse between two sticks and blindfolded. No innovation, no out of the box thinking. But do you see any further greater autonomy?
Uh, just to answer that, before just I put some information that this NMC acts to give more authority to the central government over the regulation of medical educations. Here, the NMC board members will also be a combination of medical faculties, number of the centers, state and civil services, unlike MCI, which had 2/3 members from medical fraternity. I feel this makes the regulatory body more versatile. And regarding your apprehensions for autonomy,
Yes, sir.
I'll just give you some time. I wish this education policy tries to overcome most of the problems with current education system in India. Regarding it highlights quality higher education by moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy. It attempts to defragment the educational system and encourage development of multidisciplinary universities, colleges, and HEI clusters. It attempts to bring about stage-wise mechanism for granting graded autonomy, Institute of Excellence, and colleges by developing a transparent system of graded accreditations. This policy believes that over a period of time, every college would develop either into autonomous degree granting college or a constituent college of universities. With appropriate accreditations, autonomous degree granting colleges can evolve into research intensive or teaching intensive universities. This policy suggests HEIs will also have the autonomy to move from one category to another. Even the accreditation criteria will be different for different kinds of university. I think this is one of the interesting criteria that will really benefit most different university depending on the different grade.
I think it is a good customization.
Yes.
Now, with regards to the National Education Policy 2020, the National Education Policy spells out clearly that it will promote a multidisciplinary approach. In health education, this is a new concept. We have remained constrained or restricted. We have not opened health education to fine arts and other even socially relevant issues like that is how we have bulk of our hospitals managed by MBAs and other administrators with no medical background. So a multidisciplinary, do you see a possibility of health universities including general sciences, economics as part of medical education?
In this policy, the most important thing is that all public and private are treated are on par
Do you see
with,
that possibility?
with regulatory regimes. So this is the most important component because this is a very welcome change to treat the public and private universities on par with each other. Currently, the research funding is more directed towards the public universities because of many reasons than the private sectors. That actually hampers the quality of research process due to research constraint. That
And
was the
also hurts the accreditation when it comes to that way. The private sector has not been able to attract that
yes,
amount of research funding.
yes. So what I'd like to state, if this new education policy that tries to create a regulatory regimen that treats public and private institutions is definitely a welcome move, and definitely it is likely to develop regulation for minimum standard that will help guide institutions to attain good governance, financial stability and security, educational outcomes, and transparency of disclosures. I believe this will certainly encourage private deemed university like ours and philanthropic organizations to set up universities which are transparent and competitive. The
Thank you, Dr.
policy,
Subhash.
yes.
Now, what is your opinion about integrating traditional Indian systems of education into our medical universities, like Ayush?
Yeah, okay. Actually, now there is a change in the public perceptions as well as academics' perception about among the practitioners of modern medicine to the supplementation of the treatment with Ayush, like Ayurveda, yoga. In our university, we have been trying to supplement with yoga therapy and music therapy, other components. Now, definitely it is a fact, the Ayush can play an important role in supplementing the efforts of the healthcare provided by our modern medicine. If many of these their science are properly substantiated and properly researched to generate proper evidences that will substantiate their claim. I think there is some gap. People want to know, they want evidences of how this util yoga therapy or music therapy or other supplementary medicines, that if it performed on the line of the way modern research is being carried out, and now also is good to know that things are also being carried out on this modern research methodologies, evidences are coming, and definitely if it continued this way, I think that will have a great role to supplement the delivery of the health system to the common people, because after all, our basic aim is to
Deliver the best.
get health to the people through different ways.
Dr. Subhash, I'm sure you're familiar with Professor Vinod Pal's report from Niti Aayog, which is a build-up to this national
Yes.
education policy. In that, we see that during the last 3 years, there is almost a 30 to 40% increase in undergraduate medical seats, where there is a phenomenal 70% increase in postgraduate seats over the last 3 years. What is your
Yeah.
expert opinion on this? Do we need such massive crash efforts to increase?
Yes. I think now in medical education, we are going through a change in the term of the numbers. Large number of institutions, medical institutions, particularly government heads institutions like AIMS, state medical institutions, and many other institutions are opening up. It's a positive sign.
But
It's a
where are the teachers? Where are the teachers?
positive sign, I do believe, because it we have to increase large number of doctors for our 130 crores of populations. But definitely, when the infrastructure should be infrastructure and term of manpower requirement, faculties, resources should be matching to that expenses. I think if that is taken care of, I hope it will add further to the quality of medical education. Otherwise, if there is a mismatch between the quality of manpower, number of manpowers, and also the most important study materials in health is the patients. If there is a less number of patients, though it can be supplemented some by simulation or online, but that cannot completely replace the patients, which are the best study material. That we must accept it. So we must try to address to remove some of the stumbling blocks on these issues, like number of the faculties, number of the patients visiting at the hospitals, and we should make all the efforts to augment and strengthen further in the clinical teachings. And of course, can be supplemented like simulation-based teachings, which is becoming a large way. Like cadaver-based teaching also we have started, also it's coming a big way. But patient load in the hospital should be adequately addressed. And all these things, if taken together, I hope will contribute to the good quality of medical education in India.
One final question, Dr. Subhash. I'm sure there are many administrators who are also logged in to this program of the Education Promotion Society. What is your personal opinion about the quality of teachers now available in medical education? And do you see a hope with the National Education Policy 2020 changing that?
You see, the quality of faculties in, you see, now when we think of the faculties in these medical institutions, either government or private, each institution, whether government or private, they make their best effort to select the best talents as faculties. But the problem remains that when best talents are selected as faculties, we have to create an ambience, we have to facilitate these talents to be a good academician, or to be a good research worker, or to be a good clinicians. I think as administrators and heads of the universities or institutions, for me, it is my major challenge is to augment the talents of my faculties, whom I value a lot. in relation to their clinical or research skills or academic skills. And if every institutions create a suitable platform, active teaching learning activities, active faculty development program, I think the quality of manpower, even existing, will enhance further. But at the moment, this is a serious issue. We have to work to maintain the quality of the faculties, the good quality of the faculties, your outcome, the students, or undergraduate or postgraduate students also will be qualitatively better. So the main objective of the administrative heads should to please create an ambience for your faculties whom you have recruited to, so that they should be given the opportunity to deliver their best. I do believe each faculty is the best. If we give them the opportunity, train them, augment their skills, they will be best. We have to give the opportunity for the faculties to deliver their best. Hence, quality of medical education, research, and teaching will definitely improve.
Thank you, Dr. Subhash. I can't more agree on that you have to set a stage and stimulate the best of performance in those who have stayed back as teachers in medical
Yeah.
education system, who have resisted the temptation of a larger or a more lucrative remuneration in the private sector. Thank you very much, and I thank Education Promotion Society for this effort to get the best from picking the brains of Dr. Subhash, an eminent educationalist, former Director General of JIPMER Pondicherry, and now the Vice Chancellor at Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth. Thank you, Dr. Subhash. Have a wonderful days ahead. God bless. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for an interesting discussion.